What's up, YouTube? I'm Robert, and this is the B1KER Bar Channel podcast live stream. One of those things. You pick one, it's up to you. It's episode 58, dude. Super excited to have trail features on. This is he's been on the B1KER Bar a lot in the past. I think a handful of times at least on some collaboration type of chats, but I don't think I've ever had him on just him and actually talking about what he's doing over on his channel. So this will be interesting. Thanks to the patrons out there, the Patreon patrons out there. You guys, every week, man, every time I see somebody sign up, I'm like, right on, dude. You guys keeping it real, keeping the stoke like alive to keep the channel going and support me. I really appreciate that. I can't say enough about it. $1 a month, give you some coupons, or just put beer in my fridge, whatever makes you feel good. $5, get a sticker pack. That makes me stoked because I don't know. It's just fun sending them out. I always write a little letter, and it's just interesting seeing where they're going. Those of you guys listening on the podcast, thanks a lot, man. I love it. Every time I see the reviews on there, you guys are keeping it real on there too. Lots of fun. Like and subscribe. If you enjoy what you're doing here, hit the like button, or what I'm doing here. If you're enjoying the time that you're spending here, hit the like button. If you're enjoying the content, subscribe for sure, man. It is what keeps me motivated. I really like seeing those numbers, and it's fun. Leave comments, definitely, even on the little clips. If you've seen them, if you watch them, leave a little comment, say something. It's fun to interact with everybody out there. So I know I don't keep paying a lot of attention to the chat while we're going, but those of you guys that are throwing up super chats, thank you. I really appreciate it. I do see them. I try to, if I can, like type a little thank you out while we're having our conversation. I do, but seriously, those of you guys that just want to you're feeling the instant satisfaction. Man, get that word out there all the way into second grade. The instant satisfaction of just throwing up a super chat. That's awesome too, man. I really appreciate it. So even though maybe I don't say something right at the time, it is definitely heard and felt, and I way appreciate it. So let's go ahead, and I forgot to pick some product to talk about, that I don't have any other sponsor to ramble on about something, but I do have this Maxxis Minion SS tire that one of my buddies here, look at this. It's got these huge knobs on the corners, but like really flat and smooth on the middle. One of my buddies, C-Lock, you guys seen him on the channel a lot. He talked me into buying that tire. So I want to see what that thing's all about. So if you guys have any preference on what tire that I should run up front, throw it in the comments, and we'll go from there. Anyways, let's get our today's guest on. It's going to be fun to have good old trail features, or Joe, as some of you guys know. Hey, how's it going, Joe?
Hey, pretty good, Robert.
Do you like Joe or Joseph?
I get that question so freaking much. Joe is fine. Joseph's fine. I used to have a preference because growing up in a big family, you could always tell you were in trouble when your full first name got shouted, and then you
right.
knew you should hide when your first, middle, and last name got shouted.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's the big one there. Were you a Joey when you were a kid?
I was, and it's funny. You can always tell the friends that I grew up with as a kid. They call me Joey. Like, hey, what's up, Joey?
Yeah, I was Robbie when I was a kid, and my one cousin, she insists on calling me Robbie still, and it's like because she just likes pushing my buttons the same way that I would to her. She does it all the time. So when I go home, she introduces me to everyone as Robbie, like purposely just to F with me. So. Good times. But and it's funny because what you just said is I grew up with a uncle that's like basically the same age as me, and his name was Joe as well, but I still call him Joey too, and I'm like, dude, come on, you expect people to call you Rob or Robert, you can't do the same thing to him.
Yeah, it's funny. It's that ingrained nature that you have.
Yeah, it's no getting around it. So I was saying in the intro, man, that we hadn't talked, just about trail features on the channel, on any of the B1KER Bar podcasts. So I figured we could get into some of that. I think every time that we've been on the show together, either had another person or we had I was looking, we had like an agenda, like we're talking about cameras or you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you realized real quick that was a mistake because I can just
better stop that guy now.
you need to balance the aperture with the
this is the thing though, is I finally, broke down and bought a legitimate like big boy camera. So now I have like a little bit of an inkling of what you're talking about compared to before. All I knew was like iPhone and GoPro. So I don't know, man. I'm still struggling whenever people, ask about starting a channel and what they should get gear wise. I still tell them like, just get a GoPro, you'll be good. Like I spent
or a cell phone.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I would say the GoPro just for the ease of being able to mount it on different places,
Yeah, and it's rugged.
Yeah.
But like, let's be honest. It's weird the time that we live in. Most kids, and when I say kids, I mean like, 14 to 18, they're more likely to have a cell phone than a GoPro because a GoPro is a luxury item. And weirdly enough, a cell phone is really considered an essential these days because you got to keep in touch with everyone. And, it's up to each parent to figure out how far they can connect in at certain ages to social media. But even crappy phones that you bought used off of eBay that are 3 years old have a decent camera that can film at least 1080p.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I would say when I first started my channel, I was doing a lot more of like POV kind of stuff. And now it's like, I just do so much more with like different B-roll and this and that. And I mean, I feel like you could just set your camera on or your phone on the side of the trail, do some ride bys and do some like, vloggy kind of stuff while you're climbing or while you're, standing around, and you can still make a pretty decent video.
I mean, you get this question a lot. I get the question, what kind of camera gear do I need? And the hard truth that no one wants to hear is if you can't make good content with a cell phone, you're not going to make good content with a $10,000 cinema camera. That's the hard truth.
Tell me about it.
You have to learn the basics. You have to learn storytelling. You have to learn composition. You have to, learn all these things that quite honestly apply to any camera.
Yeah.
And until you learn those things, it doesn't matter. Like my brother-in-law is actually a professional cinematographer, DP, director of photography. And he has a $250,000 camera system, one of many that he has. He has like probably more than he wants to admit to his wife in camera gear. And he set it up when I was out visiting in California, and I'm standing there looking at this just cinema level camera. This has been used to film some great movies and TV shows, Ari Alexa. And I didn't want to touch it. I didn't know how to work it. Like I was literally the dog that caught the car. I'm standing.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I don't know what to do with it. I don't even know where the power button is.
Oh, that's funny.
Now, once we got it fired up and on my shoulder, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But I'm like, this is so impractical. I would never use this. Even in a studio, I would never use it. And that's the thing that like, even I, who am a major camera geek, there's so much camera gear out there these days that are unitaskers. You buy it for one use and then it sits in the closet. I found that I get the most creative when I'm limited in what I have. Like on Instagram, I made this slow-mo of products. It looks like the products are floating up.
Yeah, you were dropping them?
Yeah, I was actually dropping it, and I was dropping it with the camera upside down into a box full of pillows, so I didn't break my my iPhone. But I just filmed
the camera upside down too. Okay.
Yeah, so like it was all practical effects, and the difference between practical effects and like special effects is practical effects are everything you can do in the real world. Like Jim Henson is a master of practical effects because everything has to be crafted. All these things, the puppets, the backgrounds, all that stuff, and practical effects, even when done meh, are way better than special effects that enter what's called the uncanny valley, where you can tell it's fake because it's so bad. It's just weird. Anyways, yeah, I did that with a cell phone, a black sheet, a a couple of cheap lights, and some pillows in an afternoon because I was bored during quarantine.
Yeah, I'm
And
surprised. So
like,
why did you turn the camera upside down instead of just editing it and flipping it and edit and like post?
why not? I knew that was the way I wanted the footage anyways.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
was just holding. So there
yeah,
was no practical reason.
yeah,
And
yeah.
even if I decided I wanted to flip it around, then I could have flipped it around.
Right.
So yeah, going back to that, grab your cell phone and just set it up. Get some rubber bands. If you don't have a tripod, rubber bands and string, and just
Yeah,
use that to jerry rig something out on the trail. Tie it or rubber band it to a branch. Use rocks. I mean, quite honestly, I have tripods and stuff like that, and there are more times than I want to admit that I took a $5,000 camera setup and set it up on a bunch of rocks because that was the
yeah.
most convenient thing.
That's funny.
It really is. People obsess so much with the camera gear. It does not matter. It does not matter at all.
I enjoy the photo taking process though. I can say that like I've always enjoyed that. Like even with my phone, it would be like trying to like get cool shots for Instagram and stuff like that. And once I got my camera, taking those pictures is like it's really satisfying.
Yeah, you're actually taking some pretty good photos, man. I was pretty pretty stoked on some of the stuff that you sent us.
Oh, right on, man. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there obviously I'm still taking a lot on my Instagram with my phone because that's there all the time. You're not lugging that around on the trail, but it's been fun. I mean, I've done a few different. Like there was a day not too long ago where we were at the beach for in a beach city for something for the ladies' work, and I had the day to kind of just tool around and was like out just taking a bunch of pictures all day. I mean, I kept myself occupied for like 8 hours of walking around just taking pictures, you know. I was like, this is, I don't know, it's really fun. The crazy thing is you can take pictures that long and get home and there's only like 20 that you're happy about.
Oh yeah.
You know?
It happens to the best of us, man. And I mean, like that comes with experience because you take a bunch of photos and then you realize what didn't work. And then next time when you see that same situation, you're like, yeah, skip that one.
Yeah.
Or, you get better at just kind of holding the camera up to something and going,
yeah,
nah, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I had this there. I don't think you're on my personal Instagram. I had, there was these two guys like out on these rocks that were like out into the ocean. The waves were like crashing in front of them. So like you'd get the spray up in certain times. And I was just sitting there for probably at least 35 minutes taking pictures of these guys, just trying to get the like perfect amount of spray at the perfect direction, but I ended up turning out with some pretty cool pictures though. It's funny too. I noticed, I don't know if you do it too. Like when you're out, like just taking pictures, like I was like taking pictures of some dude's kid, like playing in the sand and stuff. I'm like, I was showing Katie, I was like, dude, I got these awesome pictures of this kid. And she's like, that's kind of weird. You're like taking pictures of somebody else's kid. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't think about that at the time.
What's funny? There was this incident way back in the day. I actually used to work as a vet tech assistant, like back in my early 20s. And there was this big to-do outside of our clinic one day because across the street is a daycare, and this guy was visiting from another country, and he was a designer. Oh my gosh, architect. Thank you. Gosh, brain is malfunctioning today. He was an architect from a country that was still developing. I don't remember which country it was, but he thought it was so cool how they had everything set up. So here's this dude that doesn't speak very good English taking photos of a daycare. People were called.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it got explained by their friend, like, oh my God, yes. Because like the guy was like running some errands, and so he just kind of left his friend hanging out in the car. Yeah. It's like one of those weird scenarios that like, how does this actually happen? But thankfully, like nothing bad happened. But yeah, it's a really weird look when you start taking pictures of people. You hope that most people don't think that you're weird, but that's also why you have long lenses. But that still doesn't help if someone is just like, oh, there's a dude with like a big old camera lens taking photos of a kid over there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at this point too, I'm kind of like experimenting to figure out what I really like to take pictures of. Like I've noticed with photography type of people you're talking to, they're like, oh, I like taking pictures of nature, or I like taking pictures of food or whatever. And so like right now I'm just like taking pictures of everything. So do you have a preference?
I think that my preference is like street photography, like candid shots of people, because I feel like, I always get annoyed when people pose for my camera. I was like, no, I don't want you to pose and smile and be like, oh, geez. I want to capture the moment of like you guys having a fun conversation and the expression, because then that actually feels like you're looking at a still moment.
Yeah.
And then also I like, what's that?
It's a story. Somebody was telling me that like when you're taking a picture, it should be a story.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, you should look at it and like you feel like you're in the moment. You can tell what's going on, or like you kind of build a scenario in your head. It's fun. And then like Sedona, when we were out there for Sedona Mountain Bike Fest, I was hanging out around Sedona because I was waiting for my evening flight. So I had tons of time to kill in between checking out of my hotel and getting to the airport. I just walked around with my iPhone, and I got to tell you, sometimes an iPhone is the best street photography camera because it's really small. No one looks weird, or no one looks at you weird because you're walking around taking photos with your iPhone.
Right.
So people just kind of ignore you. So you can get those really cool, candid photos. But then you can also squeeze that tiny little lens into the weirdest positions and get really cool shots.
Yeah, it's super fun. It definitely is a good time. It's a lot to learn though at first. I know when I first got my camera, it was like I felt like, I had a pretty good understanding of taking photos or like using video equipment. At that point, I've been doing my channel for a while, and it's like, you spend I don't know, what was it, like $1,800 for the camera and the lens. You're like, you get this thing and you take it out of the box and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, so,
dog that caught the car.
Yeah. You're totally
fancy, what do you do with it? That's
right. And
going back to it, that's why I tell everyone you can learn so much with a cell phone. You might not be able to control the aperture, but you can control ISO, shutter. You can learn composition. You can learn lighting. You can learn what makes a good shot.
Yeah, some of that stuff, I'm still like the Swedish chef in there, just like lork, just throwing shit around, like, because I'm like, I have like an idea, like if I do this, it'll give me some bokeh in the background. Those of you guys that don't know what bokeh is, it's kind of like when the background is blurred, but whatever you're looking at is in focus. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I know if I do that, I have to have it this way. And then I'm like, but I don't want it like that, so I'll just turn this knob all the way the other way, and we'll see what happens when I look at it later.
Eventually you learn.
Yeah. No, it's been a lot of fun. So what was it that made you decide to start the Trail Features channel?
Man, that's going back a ways.
Yeah, huh?
So I think the reason why was actually a few reasons. So going back to it, like when I was younger, like 14, 13, I used to really want to make movies. I thought it was really cool. Like I said, my brother-in-law, who at the time was my sister's boyfriend, his dad was a cinematographer, ran his own production house. So he was into cinematography. So, I really liked watching movies when I found out about that. His dad was like, oh, you want to spend a day at my production house and goof around? And I thought it was the coolest freaking thing ever, because this was back in the day when you had to have dedicated computers that were specifically built to edit video.
Yeah.
And that was a super luxury. Like that was $10,000 back in 90s money. So we're talking big serious money.
Right.
Anyways, so like eventually camera gear got affordable enough that I could get lucky enough that my mom bought a Super 8 camera, digital camera. And I started playing around with that, and I would edit videos at home on the VCR, and it was just goofy stuff with my family. And then Mini DV came out, and suddenly video editing became affordable, relatively speaking. Mac. So like when I was 14, 15, I started filming my friends that were skaters, and I was the squid that was following them around, filming them, jumping
Oh,
fences.
that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really where I started playing with this. And this is way before YouTube.
Yeah,
There was
yeah.
nowhere to upload this stuff unless you knew how to run a web server.
Right.
And it was super expensive to host anything.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there was no, like, you remember what it was like watching videos back in the 90s. It was like this little postage stamp made of like 90 pixels.
Right.
It always would buffer and it sounded echoey and tinny.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I worked at a production house and I was like 18, 19. I was like 16. I was a teenager. I was a full-on teenager.
One of the teens.
Yeah, I took a crappy community college video editing class. This local production house came in headhunting for interns to use and abuse. And so I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I got a job there, and I was making $20 per video.
Oh, there
Unless
you go.
someone else worked on the video, then you had to split it equally. But there were like 20 interns, and whoever could come in that day was just assigned a video to work on. And so $20 would get split 5 different ways. You couldn't even make up your gas money working that thing. And that's just how the industry is. And I just got so burnt out because I'd be sitting there, and this guy who actually owned the production company came in and was kind of coaching someone like, oh, here's how you do good storytelling with editing this. And, this guy had done some really cool stuff. And as soon as he left, this hotshot young producer comes in and goes, don't listen to him. And like every stereotype you've ever heard about the industry is absolutely true. Everyone's a prima donna. Everyone thinks they're the next Spielberg. Everyone's trying to stab each other to get in front of the line.
Yeah.
I just got burnt out on it because I just wanted to make cool stuff. So I quit that, got into tech. Fast forward, I had hurt my back when I had moved to Austin back in 2014, 2015. I was deadlifting. I fatigued out. I didn't drop the weight. I let it pull me down, and it just rolled my back. And anyone who does any serious powerlifting knows that's just a guaranteed way to wreck yourself. So yeah, I wasn't just in pain. I was like physically disabled for like a year. It took me a year of PT because I already had a pre-existing back condition for messing up my back playing paintball. Anyways, that got me laying on the couch watching YouTube 24/7 because like if I wasn't working, I was laying down. That was the 2 major aspects of my life. Trying to get through the workday without crying as a grown man, and then going home and laying down. And so I used to mountain bike when I was a teenager, but I stopped when I was like 16 because I discovered video games. Yeah. And so I'm watching these videos, and YouTube, the weird algorithm that it is, noticed that like I kind of clicked on a couple mountain bike videos, and then all of a sudden these Seths and Brians and all these crazy mountain bikers start showing up, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty fun. And after about a year, I got stir crazy because I was like, I need to get out of the house, but it needs to be low impact. And I used to run for cardio, but then I was like, oh, well, I can get a bike and just start biking around. And I wasn't a road cyclist, and I didn't want something that was super aggressive, so I just got like it was a late year model Kona Lanai, and it was on sale. I grabbed it, and I started
like
riding.
A hardtail,
it's like a basic like 520 new. Last year's model usually goes for like 380, 420.
Oh, so like under $500 hardtail.
Yeah, so like I get it, and I just start pedaling around, and I'm like, well, this is pretty fun. And after a while, I started commuting to work on the bike. And because I was terrified of getting hit by a car and then them trying to claim that I was the problem, I started wearing Sony action camera.
Sounds like a Joe thing to think of too. just because I know you, I've known you for a while. That's totally like, I'm worried they're going to hit me and then there's going to be this lawsuit.
You know, I think it's stupid that people don't like road cyclists because they're a mountain biker.
Yeah.
But I don't argue with anyone that being a road cyclist is trying to commit suicide and failing at it every time you get on the bike. But anyways, that's another topic.
Right.
So the point is I started riding and I started filming this stuff. And eventually I decided to make a video because I was like, I used to like video editing.
Yeah.
And I made a video and I just posted it to my local Facebook, my personal one. And, people thumbed it up. I was just like, that was cool. But then I decided to build up a Salsa Via because I wanted to get a more efficient commuter while still kind of having it capable. And the Salsa Via is basically like a gravel bike.
Oh, okay.
It's meant to go off road, but it's still, more efficient than a mountain bike.
Yeah.
And then I had my actual mountain bike. So I decided it would be really fun to film the assembly of that.
Okay.
Because it was like, oh yeah, I'm really liking this bike stuff. People seem to like these bike videos. It'd be really cool to put a YouTube video up. So I made it, and that was my very first YouTube video, and a few people liked it. And then eventually I got a Yeti, and I was like, well, I'll make a review as a average Joe, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Bought this fancy bike.
Right.
What do I think about it?
Yeah.
And that video got a decent amount of views,
and
it
blew up. Any like review type video, especially on a bike that's hot.
Oh
like,
yeah,
reviews, you're gonna get the views. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's really cool. So then from there, it just was like, all right, here I'm in the game.
Yeah, from there it was just started gaining critical mass, and then the channel actually didn't really take off until I wouldn't say it didn't take off. It was like growth was steady, but at a reasonable pace until I decided that I was going to make a video focusing on more affordable bikes because I decided to sell the Yeti and I was bike shopping and I realized how much it sucks because there's so many good bikes out there these days that even if you know what you're doing, it's such a hard decision to make. And then if you're a newbie walking into this, there's so much conflicting information out there.
Yeah, totally.
Like long travel, short travel, 29er, 27, what's better? And it's like, just get on a bike and ride it. If it feels good, that's it.
The downside is like a lot of that stuff that you want to know the answer to as a new rider, you won't know until you've ridden for a while. Exactly. So like otherwise all you're doing is just taking somebody else's opinion and making it yours. Like if somebody is like, oh dude, this is why 29 is the best. And you're like, okay, I'll buy a 29er. You know what I mean? You're not like, you might not actually like a 29er. You know what I mean? But you don't know. Bikes. You have to ride for a while before you can come to that place.
Yeah. There's so many bikes out there that look great on paper that I've ridden and hated.
Yeah.
Like the first, the Gorilla Gravity bike. Not the current one that's carbon fiber, but the one right before that. I rented that bike because there were so many people like, oh, it's such a great bike. And on paper, I love the geometry because it had this nice long reach, super slack, aggressive. And I love the fact that it was modular. So like I could buy different shocks and forks and have different bikes. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I'm sold on this. And I almost was going to have them build me a custom bike, like custom welded and everything. Yeah. And I rented the bike for a day, took it up to Trestle. That bike was terrifying because my riding style did not complement it. It wants a very, very aggressive rider that's in that attack position constantly and can throw around a bike. And I'm not that person. It's not that I let the bike take me for a ride. It's that I'm not a shredder. I don't want to go mock chicken down everything. I actually prefer more slow tech. But I still love going to the bike park, don't get me wrong. But yeah, that bike was terrible for me. And I walked away.
It's funny that you say that. I just told this story to somebody, I think it was yesterday. Like before I bought the Bronson, I was 100% set on the Yeti SB5. Like on paper, I wanted that bike. I would like look at it every day. I would what I was going to do is I live in California. I was going to drive to Oregon to buy it because they don't have sales tax on it up there. So I was like, oh, I'd save almost a couple $100 by going up there. And like, I just like thought about it all the time. Okay, well, I'm going to go visit these people and I'm going to get this build and like, but on the other hand, I kind of like the Bronson too, but it was like my side chick,
Yeah.
And I would, so like when I would be searching, because I had this money set aside, I had like refinanced my house. So that's what actually would gave me enough money to buy one of these expensive bikes, right? So I had some money set aside from that. Like I got some money out of it, or I sold my house. I can't remember which one it was. Anyways, and so I was looking for used bikes at the same time. I was like planning on this new one. And I was like, well, let's see what comes up first. I wasn't in a hurry. And I ended up finding, there's just screaming deal on this Bronson, and I bought it. And later on down the road, I ended up renting that SB5 and I couldn't stand it.
Yep.
I'm like so happy that I ended up with the Bronson.
I mean, there are so many things, not even just bikes, but just like material objects. You love the idea of it.
Yeah.
Like everyone loves the idea of having a Bugatti, but then you look at maintenance, storing, driving, it's just not practical. And that's one of the things that I try to really focus on in my channel is like practical bikes.
Yeah.
Like I got a lot of flack for calling the GT Sensor a budget bike. And you know what? That's actually a valid point. At the time, it was $1,900 for the bike. That is not chump change.
Yeah.
That's not. That's a lot of money, especially right now.
But it's 25% of what some bikes cost.
Exactly. So. Like, relatively speaking, full suspension bikes are not cheap because you can get a $1,200 full suspension bike. Diamondback, I think, sells one around that price. But man, it is bare bones. It is so bare bones. It is like single pivot, very basic linkage. All the components on it are bottom of the barrel. Like it's fun to think about a bike like that, but I would never recommend it to anyone.
Yeah.
I would rather them take $1,200 and get an amazing hardtail.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I tell people when they have a small budget like that, I'm like, either go hardtail or commit to getting something used and be all right with getting something that's got some scratches on it. But it's gonna be a way better bike than what you're looking at right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Although, you know what? I also get a lot of flack for this. For new riders, I do not recommend used. Unless you have a friend that could really help walk you through the process.
Yeah, I can see that. You could end up with garbage.
Yeah, if you don't, there have been so many people that have told horror stories and people that, are pretty savvy when it comes to it, but they didn't realize that like there was this horror story happening inside the bottom bracket. And they're like, oh God, there's like all this corrosion and there's a crack and there's like a lot of stuff you can miss.
Yeah.
When I sold my Yeti, like I went top to bottom with that thing to make sure that it was probably in the best shape that it had ever been for me to sell it. Like I didn't take that good care of it compared to what I did to make sure it was good. Like I got the bearings and the wheel set redone. I completely stripped down the linkage and rebuilt it. I had the frame checked over top to bottom because I did not want to be that person that sold a crap bike.
Yeah, I'm like, I sprayed that thing off with a hose, man.
What's that?
If I'm selling a bike, I'm like, I sprayed that thing off with a hose, man.
Yeah, but yeah, like I always get nervous when you go on Reddit and someone asks like, hey, I'm looking at a bike in this budget, what should I buy? Oh, buy used. Like that's such a blanket statement. You have no idea the experience they have, idea what the market's like there.
I've seen some buddies get hammered on that too, where they bought a used bike and then it was like an older Specialized and they had some funky shock that they only did for themselves, and in order to get it serviced, nobody does that anymore. You got to send it to some Yahoo out in like the backwoods of Oregon and he'll get it back to you in a few weeks. And it was like, oh, that sucks.
That's actually why. So here's a little secret. You know that Schwinn Axum that I recently reviewed, the Walmart bike?
Mm-hmm.
When I first got that email and I saw it was from Schwinn, I laughed because I was like, there's no way I'm reviewing a piece of shit Schwinn.
Yeah.
Like I would never have said that
Yeah.
to their face, because like at first I was like, no, that's not worth anyone's
I'm
time.
better than that.
But I clicked on it, I'm looking at it, and I started looking at the photos. I was like, those are all standard parts.
Yeah.
Like, is that a tapered head tube?
Yeah.
That's a threaded bottom bracket. And that's, wait a minute, hold on. There might be something here. And like, I looked at the email for a couple days, and then I was like, oh my God, this is actually a really good bike. Like, it's still very entry level. I wouldn't take it down a double black diamond and, send it to flat. But for someone that just wants to get the bare minimum but good bike, that actually was a really good deal. And the reason why is because since it used standard parts, like with your buddy that got screwed over on the proprietary shock, you can walk into any bike shop with a broken derailleur, bad cranks, bad shifter, and they're going to be able to pull something off the shelf and replace it. That is a huge benefit for a new rider because it takes away a lot of the frustrations.
Yeah, totally. Definitely does. It's funny when you were telling like the backstory of your channel earlier, and you're like, it didn't blow up until this point. And I was like, knowing your channel like kind of got this huge growth after you decided to stop kind of doing YouTube for like you kind of like not quit, but like, I'm not doing this like, aggressive, like I'm trying to be a YouTuber kind of, I don't know how you called, what did you call that change that you did? Because you kind of took a step back. Yeah.
I called it not giving a fuck.
You went from all the fucks given to none of the fucks given.
Exactly. Which, by the way, I try to keep it very clean on my channel, but I know here we can be a little bit more open. If Robert knows, if you met me in person, you know that I will cuss like a sailor if I feel comfortable. Anyways, yeah, I feel like everyone goes through the cycle where they decide to start a YouTube channel. It starts to have a decent amount of success. You start getting the 10 subscribers, 20 subscribers, 40 subscribers, and you're like, you start getting those delusions. Like everyone has it, those little thoughts of like, yeah, I could quit my job. I could totally do this. Oh wow, I just need to get 1,000 subscribers and then I can start monetizing, and then the money will just roll on in. And I'm going to be real honest with you. YouTube ruined my life for a while. Yeah. It ruined my relationship. It ruined my job. It ruined my spare time. It ruined my love of mountain biking because I became so obsessed with making content. Everything had to be content. Yeah. When my girlfriend wanted to start riding with me, and I started getting all these ideas about how I can make videos on it, I was treating her like a prop. Yeah. And so, and then I would go out and use all my spare time to film stuff and never spend any time with her. And then when I get home, I'd be tired, exhausted. I would maybe shower before eating and then sit down on my computer and start editing because I was like, I got to get a video out this week because I was so obsessed with that weekly cycle. Yeah. And, it just, I'm a person that I get fixated on stuff.
You and I have a lot in common that way. So I can totally relate with what you're saying. Yeah.
So it can be great, like at work, if my boss gives me a task that like I just dig into, he knows that I'm going to work on it until I know it's perfect and polished. Right. That was something he actually said on my review last month. He's just like, we never really have to go back and rework your stuff. It just seems to work. Anyways, that's me tooting my own horn. But no, like seriously, it really did ruin my life because like I would want to go for a ride, but then I'm like, oh, my cameras aren't charged. Yeah. Like I had to film every ride. So like, what was the point of riding if you're not going to make content out of it? That's wasted time. You should do something else. And like basically between me being miserable and my girlfriend kind of giving me an ultimatum of like,
Get your shit together, dude.
Yeah, like this is really messing with things, Joe.
Yeah.
I just had to let go of everything
Yeah.
and just like back off. And that was around the time that, I was trying to get rid of the Yeti. And I was like, that was also why I got fed up with like trying to figure out how to buy this perfect bike. I'm like, you know what? This sucks. I'm just going to buy like something that I need. I don't need a $10,000 bike.
Yeah.
I barely can use the Yeti, and like I
Definitely
don't
not like these other guys that I'm seeing.
like my wheels don't leave the ground most of the time.
Yeah.
I don't set any speed records going up or down. So
Yeah. You're just out having a good time.
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of the moment of just letting go of it all.
Yeah.
And I don't hold it against anyone that has that work ethic where like they can balance things perfectly. And
I have no balance. I can't balance at all.
Yeah. Like the full timers out there, like BKXC, amazing work ethic. And, BKXC has even said, he's like, I have never met anyone with a work ethic like Seth.
Yeah.
Seth is successful because Seth is able to organize himself that well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Utilize every moment of the day while still balancing things.
Yeah.
That's why he has a very hard, what's the term I'm looking for? He has a very strict rule of like his personal life is completely separate from
I see what you're saying.
Wife into it. He doesn't really make a lot of content about his personal life. He's like Seth Bike Hacks, or he's not.
Yeah. Turn it off or turn it on.
So
yeah, I hear you there, dude. Yeah, and I went through something similar, so I can totally relate with you. Where I have that same thing where I get 100% fixated on something, and when I first started my channel, that was it. I can imagine. I know, like when I would be talking to the lady, there would pretty much be like no conversation that I wanted to have with her unless it had something to do with YouTube for like a while. It was like, I'm sure for her, it was like, all right, dude, can we just talk about like the price of tea in China right now without it being some dude in this channel or what you're doing on that or what camera? Like, shut the fuck up already, dude. And I think I kind of came to a similar conclusion like you, where I was like, man, I didn't want to do my job because all I wanted to do was edit, and I didn't want to like hang out with the family because I'm trying to edit and or I'm trying to ride, and those are both not short things that you can do real quick and pop right back, and so
yeah,
I definitely went through that.
Not sure if I lost Robert or Robert lost me.
I'm going up. You're back.
Oh, there we go.
That was a blip, dude. Holy shit. I was like, don't make this happen to me again. I'm about to lose my mind. Hopefully that was it.
I was like, is that me or is that him? Who's on first right now?
With Sundays and this internet here.
Oh,
I think my router hates Sundays. I think that's what it is. I don't know.
Oh,
hopefully that was it.
It might be that it's renewing its DNS lease.
I have no idea, but it's been like off and on. And it's like I can't pin it on whether it's my hardware or it's the host, the ISP.
Yeah, I had this really annoying thing where like every day, every night at like 1 a.m, my my modem would renew its lease.
Mm-hmm.
And it would drop internet while it was doing that, which, by the way, someone asked what we guys do for our real jobs. Both of us are in technology, so we're talking Greek right now.
Yeah, that was the middle-aged masher. He's one of the guys down. I think he's down in Phoenix, if I remember correctly. Yeah, unfortunately, we're both IT guys, so then we get overly obsessive with anything that's IT-wise. So.
Yeah, I'm actually technically on call right now, which is why I kept glancing down every time my phone was dinging. I was like, okay, still up. No fires.
Right.
What were we talking about? Hey, Rocco. Rocco just decided to come to visit.
Oh, right on. How long you had your dog?
Rocco is like going on 14, 15 now.
Right on, dude. He's
getting
getting
old.
up there.
Yeah, I actually got him when I was working at that vet clinic I was talking about. I was a vet tech assistant, and one of my coworkers, her mother had a border collie blue heeler mix, and at that time, I was thinking about either getting a border collie or blue heeler, and her dog was not fixed, and she got out the dog and got into shenanigans, and that's how Rocco was born. And so they were looking for people to adopt the puppies. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll take one. And I got Rocco, who's the biggest derp I've ever met.
I think if you don't have a dog that does stupid things, it's like, it's not as fun.
What's that?
I said, if you don't have a dog that does stupid things, it's not as fun, right?
Oh, yeah. Rocco.
What do you mean by derp? I need to know what that word means.
Derp?
Yeah.
Oh, derp is like derp, you know.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. So
it's like an epic
sure.
brain fart where just like all logic and reason leaves your head.
Yeah.
Like you have labs, right? Labrador.
Yeah.
You know those moments where like they just do something so hilariously dumb.
Yeah, like cat shit. That's probably a good one.
That's a derp moment. You're like, oh, you're such a derp.
Yeah. What did he do the other day? Oh, we were out it was a couple weeks ago. It was like we were out in the backyard. I have a little fire pit out there. Everybody's hanging out around the fire pit, drinking beers, having a good time. And all of a sudden he pops up. His nose is up in the air and he's like smelling all over. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? And he just takes off, beelines across the yard over to where the cat was, who apparently just pooped.
Oh, God.
It was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? He was like asleep, and it was like, oh, what was that? It's like, you gotta be kidding. Get out of here, dude. Oh, yeah.
So here's a story from my vet days. We had this family bring in, it was like a 1-year-old Labrador, which at that stage, 1-year-old is still puppy. They still got tons of energy and no control over their body.
Yeah, labs are puppies until they're like 5.
Yeah, exactly. Most high energy working dogs are. But anyways, this family brings in their dog. It's not eating. It's really lethargic. We take X-rays and we see these really dark masses in its intestines. And we're like, oh, that's not good. This dog has cancer. You know, like we're running through all of it, but we we schedule it for surgery. We get it open, and the doctor pulls these rocks out of the dog's intestines, and it's like, rocks, big jagged rocks, and we're like, what the crap? So we get it all cleaned out because we're happy it's not a tumor, because oh good, it's just derp. So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at this rock trying to figure out like what would possess a dog to eat a rock, and then I noticed this black stuff on it, and I start flaking it off, and I realize it's like char. I'm like, what? And then like it clicks in my head, and like I didn't even put down the rock. I just walk out of the surgery room, go into the front where the family is waiting. It's like, do you guys have a grill in your backyard? Yeah. Do you have zero escaping like with rocks like this?
Yeah.
And like you could see it click in their head too. Like, yeah. The drippings from the grill fell down onto the rocks. The dog ate the rocks, and not just a rock, ate like 4 of them.
Like all of them.
So like he had to motivate himself to be like, ooh, that smells great. Ah, that really hurts. Ooh, another one.
Yeah. Dogs are amazing. I always have this. My dog is like very, 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 very food driven, right? And he eats so fast that we have to have this special bowl for him that slows him down. So it like slowed him down from like 10 seconds to like 30 seconds. So it's still not like some dogs will be like, yeah, we'll eat a little bit, maybe I'll come back later, eat a little bit more. Some dogs are like, take their time, like pick it up, walk over here, drop it over there, eat it over there. Like he does, like if a vacuum cleaner had an extremely high setting compared to where it's already at, that's where he eats at, right? So I always have this thing in my mind. If I just came home one day and just cut the whole fucking bag open and just sit it on the floor, would he? Because I've seen him eat enough, or I've seen him eat and then puke, right? Because that's where we had to get the slow bowl for. Like, will he eat it once he pukes? Will he keep eating the dry dog food, or will he eat his puke? And then at what point will he actually stop? Like, will he actually get full and be like, I'm done? Or he just eat until his stomach explodes, he dies?
Rocco is the same way, and quite honestly, I think that's just the way that I'm going to let him go out.
You just give the whole bag,
pour the bag out, and be like, "All right, dude, like just go for it."
One of my friends, actually, Richard from Sticker, I think he had like a roommate or something like that in college, and this guy's dog knocked over like a Costco-sized box of dehydrated mashed potatoes.
Oh,
and he ate the whole freaking thing. And of course, or he ate as much as he could. And of course, he was thirsty. And then he drank a bunch of water. And they said they came home and this dog had like mashed potatoes like oozing out of any hole in his body, just like frothing out of his mouth and his nose, and just laying on the ground. His stomach was huge.
Oh yeah. You know, it's funny. One of the most dangerous things that a dog can eat is rising dough. So like if you are like making homemade bread, which a lot of people were during quarantine, or like you have like Pillsbury Doughboy, croissants or whatever, if your dog gets into that, that's an immediate trip to the emergency room because it starts to expand in their stomach. It can actually cause a lot of issues.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I'm sure at some point or another my dog will get a hold of something he's not supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely they always make for good stories. You always have good stories when you have a dog. There's something that make people laugh about.
Oh yeah, now he's hanging out on the floor back there.
Yeah, he does that well. You always got good pictures of him on your Instagram just kicking it.
Oh yeah, well, he's old.
Yeah. So what kind of, at this point you've done a few lower budget bikes. I don't know what the politically correct way to say what I'm trying to say is. We'll just call it lower budget bike videos. What goes into you deciding like, hey, this is a bike that I'm going to choose for that?
So there was something that I said on my channel a while back. I don't like to feature things on my channel that I wouldn't buy with my own money.
Mm-hmm.
And, part of it is like, I have the benefit of, experience with buying, maintaining, upgrading, repairing bikes. So for me, like, I think, is this a good deal? Like going back to the Schwinn. Yeah. At first I was like, no. And then I realized like, actually, considering that rural America, you're way more likely to come across a Walmart than you are a bike shop. This is actually a pretty good deal. So yeah, it's like, first off, would I actually buy it? Is it something that I would buy myself or recommend to a family or family member, or friend? I don't want to know what a friend member is. Right. But yeah, would it be something that I would actually recommend to someone that I know? And is it something that's going to last or be able to be maintained? Because I hate bikes with proprietary stuff that only you can get, because bikes should be able to last for as long as you want to keep them. Mm-hmm. And then also, is it a good design? I think it's really silly when mountain bikes, after a certain price point, aren't built with aggressive geometry. And aggressive is kind of maybe not the right term. Modern geometry, which is a little bit.
It's not like it costs them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, part of that goes into like, if you have a really slack head tube, you have to make sure the welds are good. And, you would hope that a frame is good quality, but there's a lot of engineering that goes into that and making sure that the quality control is up to par.
Okay.
And also, you got to make sure the components can keep up with that. Because if you have this really slack head tube and it's aggressive, but then you have crap brakes, crap tires, crap everything, it doesn't matter how good the geometry is. The bike is not going to be able to keep up with what you think it can do, which is why a lot of entry budget level bikes are more XC, because they're a lot more user friendly for someone first getting into mountain biking because the steering is not as aggressive, so it feels better to control. It doesn't require a lot of, what we call body English, where you're really using your body to move the bike around and you're having a conversation with the bike, as I like to put it. So yeah, is it something I'd recommend? Is it a good deal? Does it have proprietary parts? If so, it's immediate write-off. And is it something that can be maintained over time? Those are the main things that I look at when I'm trying to decide if there's a bike that I want to review.
Is there a full suspension, a lower cost full suspension that you would like that comes to mind whenever you're thinking about like a budget friendly bike? Is it the GT still, or?
So what's funny? A lot of people think that I'm sponsored by GT. I'm not. I bought this bike with my own money. I have the receipt. I paid full price for it. No discounts, no nothing. That was the bike that I saw. After selling my Yeti, I had more than enough money to get it, so there was no point in getting a discount because at that point I was, just showing off if I tried.
Right.
And I really wanted to make it a sincere thing of this bike I bought with my own money. Sorry, I was dismissing some alerts.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Anyways, the GT is still a great bike, and I would still recommend it if people like GTs. If you throw a leg over it, you really like it. It's not a bad bike.
What was, I don't know what the cost was. Like, what was retail?
So when it first came out, it was $1,800. That's what I bought it for. And then the whole, economy war started. And then the price went up to $1,900 to offset that. And it's basically stayed at $1,900 now. I think it's edged up to $2,000 because they put some higher end components on it.
But under $2,000 though for a full suspension bike. Not bad.
For a good full suspension bike. Like this thing is upgraded with a lot of parts. And I've taken it to bike parks. And bike parks are really hard on components. I don't care how good your bike is.
You're going to say bike parks are really hard on bike parts. And if you can say that fast 5 times, you win a hand up hat.
Exactly. But yeah, like, Jordan Boostmaster always fixing something on his bike because he lives at the park. It just demolishes bikes. Yeah. This is my park bike. So anyways, is there one that I recommend? Funny you should ask that because there is something that should be arriving on Monday if the tracking is accurate. That's going to be the next review, and it's not a GT.
It's not a GT.
It's not a GT, and it's cheaper than the GT. And quite honestly,
said Diamondback earlier. I'm putting my money on that.
Nope, not a Diamondback. It's a brand that a lot of people have heard about, and quite honestly, many people like their series of full suspension bikes. But yeah, this is a bike that I'm interested in trying. I've been wanting to try it for a while.
Yeah, man, I have the new full suspension bike fever right now, but I keep going back and forth with myself. Like, do you really need a new bike, Rob? Like, what is the reason that you want this new bike? And I can't come up with a real reason other than I really just want a new bike. So I think what I'm going to try to do is tuck that away in some closet somewhere as long as I possibly can. Like the other day, and I think it's like, it doesn't even matter if it's a new mountain bike. I think it's just like, I need a new bike right now. Like the other day, I broke a spoke on my gravel bike. I was like, new bike, need a new bike.
It's amazing what
These
we
wheels
use
are shot.
And I mean, like, that's the thing I always try to remind myself. It's easy for me, who has like literally just bikes on bikes on bikes on bikes right now because I have review bikes. I have personal bikes that I've bought. And at the end of the day, like, they're all fun. I like them for different reasons. But if I had to give them all up, I probably would just pick a really nice hardtail.
Yeah.
Full suspension is great. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of benefits of having a full suspension bike, better traction, being able to not get beat up. But quite honestly, if like when I had my Chromag built up, even when I had my Yeti, if I only had an hour to go for a ride, I'd grab my hardtail because I wanted that hour to be the most fun, challenging hour that I could cram into the day.
My hardtail is definitely my go-to bike. But if I only was able to have one bike, it would still be a full suspension.
I don't hold it against anyone.
Yeah.
I just personally like hardtails better.
No, I just feel like there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't be able to ride if I didn't have a full suspension. You know, at least where I live. I mean, dude, you're in Colorado though too. I mean, so I guess I could ride it. It just wouldn't be as fun. Like it would definitely build like my back would just be like, dude, you need to stop this sport. You need to get over it.
All day epics are really hard on hardtails. You can do it, but the older you get or the more injuries you have, you definitely want to at least look at plus size tires. But full suspension is great. I have full suspension.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time there. That's for sure. Darn, I had like this amazing question I was going to ask you, and now it's like whatever, it's gone. So I know you've been occupied a lot lately with some production stuff. You want to talk about that?
Oh yeah. So
you guys already are not thinking the production stuff that he's about to get into.
Oh my gosh, it's such a rabbit hole. So you can't quite see it because it's a little dark, but right there, that is a 3D printer that I recently purchased, and the idea is that I always have these ideas for camera mount positions, but it's always so hard to get the stock GoPro arms to work well because you have to like really crank them down. And if you use too many adapters, like then it just wobbles all over the place. And I was just like, 3D printers are getting so cheap now. I'm pretty mechanically inclined. I bet I can figure this out. And long story short, within the span of like 2 months now, I've been teaching myself AutoCAD CAD. I'm using Fusion 360. I'm learning all this different material science, trying to figure out what's the best material, trying to figure out what's the best configuration for stuff. And I mean, Robert has seen my prototypes. Like there are just rabbit holes that I've fallen down, trying to solve problems, engineering myself into a new problem. And like,
so would it be wrong to talk about like what part you're trying to engineer, or you want to keep that under the wraps?
Well, I mean, it's basically just a GoPro mount.
Right.
Like it's a GoPro mount with modular arms that interlock together. So like they actually have indexing. So like when you lock them in place, they stay in place.
So every time that Joseph has his final design, as soon as he's posting pictures of it, he's like, yeah, but there's some modifications that I need to make. So I'm already working on something else. I don't think it's ever going to finish.
Brian has often said, that famous quote of perfection is the enemy of good.
Yeah.
And I'm not even to good yet because every time I think I get to good, I find this massive flaw with it because I'll 3D print a test print. I'll look at it and be like, yeah, this feels really strong. It's really good. And then I'll put it into configuration. I'm like, oh, but it doesn't work if you do that.
Yeah.
Or I think it's really awesome. And then I print it off and I mount it on my bike and I take it for a ride and it just cracks and falls off. And I'm like, well, I need to redesign it or I need to find a better material. And so, on my channel, since I focus on budget stuff, I get so many comments of like, why are bikes so expensive? This is 10 cents in materials. It shouldn't cost that much. Well, on my computer, when I throw something into what's called the slicer, where it takes a 3D model and then it figures out how it's going to print it, I can tell it how much my filament costs, and it can figure out how much filament it's going to use and how much that's going to cost me in filament. And it'll be like 15 cents for an arm. And like, oh, well, you should only charge $1. Okay, like now let's talk about all the time that I put into this. Let's talk about all the parts that broke. I've probably gone through like $50 worth of filament alone, just beta testing this. I'd rip through that stuff with this printer. And then if I decide to sell it, I have to find a manufacturer, work with an actual engineer to figure out how to do injection molding. Then I got a quality control test that. So I have to have someone testing it. Then I got to worry about warranties. Then I got to figure out how to stock it. Then I got to figure out how to ship it. Then I have to figure out a storefront. Then I have to figure out making sure that I have an LLC so that way I don't get sued and they come after all my money in my retirement funds.
So you guys remember earlier when I was talking about how Joseph, that's one of those Joseph comments when he was worried about somebody hitting him on a road bike. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I said to him when he was telling me, he was saying something like this on our Slack channel, and I was like, dude, just put it on Etsy and print one at a time when somebody wants one and find out if they actually want them. And if somebody hits you up because they broke theirs, then you can decide what you're going to do. But that's not the way that Joseph's brain works.
No, I got to go through the whole process. Like I said, that's why my boss likes me, because I get asked the question. I go, all right, this, then this, then this, then this. If that, then
Right.
anyways, but like, Aaron from PNW Components, he and I talk in the background a lot. He's a good friend of the channel, not a sponsor, just a good friend.
Yeah.
And like, I send him these texts and I'm like, how does anyone make anything? Because this is so like infuriating, the whole process. And then I like go through that spiel of like this.
Yeah.
And he's like, Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. And then everyone complains about how expensive it is. And I was like, yeah. And then you got these freaking YouTubers asking for free samples and then they make videos on it.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, that too.
Yeah. And then there's that.
So, I mean, it like basically what that means is, yes, 10 cents a material, but then there's so many people and steps in between. That's how 10 cents in material turns into a $20 part.
Yeah. So how are you liking living in Colorado and riding there compared to the riding that you originally kind of like fell in love with down in Austin?
I'm not going to lie. I actually kind of miss some of the riding in Austin. I get weird looks whenever I say that.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in hearing why.
Because Colorado is so famously epic, right?
Right.
We got multiple bike parks. We got Monarch Crest. We have all this stuff. There's like just down the road, there's a bunch of jump parks that I can go to. And so, yeah, there's tons of stuff out there. But Austin had this really cool network of trails that just span the entire city because it was hill country. And once you got out of the mountain bike trails, it usually would be that you could connect in to like a footpath or a greenbelt trail or whatever, and you could go and grab some food because there were tons of food trucks and everything. The culture there for biking was really inclusive. Like bikes were just a part of the community there. Road, gravel, whatever, didn't matter. Frankenbike was this big swap meet that I used to love going to, where it was just people with whatever parts they had would just lay them out on a blanket and you could barter with it. And I watched people build bikes at Frankenbike. I actually wanted to make a video where I went to Frankenbike and had like $100 budget and had to walk out with a functioning bike. So yeah,
that would be fun. Actually, yeah, it would be a super fun video.
Yeah, like that's how cool it is. And there was tons of great bike shops there. They have that downhill park now. And basically the reason why it worked was because of, instead of all these people sitting there and complaining that they lived in this super flat area, they only had a few hundred feet to work with, there's no good trails. They went out and figured out how to make the most of 20 feet of elevation, even.
Yeah.
How to make it fun. And the reason why I love it is because you just got done with a crappy day at work. You got home. You have just enough time to shove some food in your mouth, grab your gear, and grab your bike and go out and maybe get a 30-minute ride in. Here in Colorado, if you want to get in like a good ride, you usually have to drive out to the foothills, which can, depending on where you are, can be 30 minutes in of itself, or up to an hour. Then you got to climb all the way up, like 800,000 feet, and then you can go down.
Yeah.
Whereas with Austin, like you just go to the trailhead, and because it's this up and down, really twisty, windy,
kind of like
technical stuff,
Sedona almost, just like
exactly.
up, down. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just in it. Like the second you hit the trail, there's no real climbing trails. It's just the trail.
Yeah.
And that's what made it so fun and how creative the mountain bikers got there. That's why
cool.
I loved it.
Yeah. No, I can totally see where you're coming from there. Because I'm in a similar position where I'm at in Northern California. It's 30, 45 minutes till where I'm riding. And yeah, of course, I'm just like you said, I'm going to park at the bottom. I'm not parking at the top because I want to finish on a downhill. So like,
yeah,
then I'm climbing for another 45 minutes from there. And, it's definitely a lot more commitment there. I've been riding a lot of road bike lately during the week just because it's like what you said. I mean, I can go like right out my door, and right by my house, there's a paved trail. It's like 32 miles long. So it's like, I'm not out there like dealing with the teenagers texting and driving, like, so
yeah.
It's definitely, it's easy to do, and so I could see if you had something like that. I think that's the beauty of like Bellingham, like where Josh lives, where he's like, these amazing trails, but like right outside of his door, and it's like, I don't know. I'm going to have to go up there and see if he's just bullshitting, right?
No, I mean,
you've been up in that area too, huh?
Yeah, like my buddy Paul, not Paul the punter, but like Paul that I grew up with, who calls me Joey.
Yeah, that's funny.
He hang on. Close the door. Anyways,
it's getting serious now.
He used to live out there, and I would go like once a year to go mountain biking, and it is just some of the best riding. The hype is so real there because it's great. Like you do have climbing trails, but it's the top. That's like 5, 6, maybe 800 feet of climbing. It's not bad depending on the trail. Like there are taller climbs. But if you just need to get in a quick trail, you can climb up and then head down, and like it's maybe like a 30-minute ride. And it's a great ride too.
Yeah.
So that's why Josh can ride every day.
Yeah, their dirt up there is just like amazing all the time. So earlier when you were talking, I remembered what my question was that I told you I had this great question. So I had to write it down because otherwise I would have forgot it again by now. So you have a mountain bike, and it's actually back there behind you, that has drop bars on it. What are you thinking?
You're talking about that bike.
Yeah, that's GT as well.
Yeah. So this was the GT Avalanche that they sent me for a review. And here's a little secret. I did get to keep that. I was not paid for that review. And a lot of people did point out, like, well, you can't say you weren't paid because of the fact that you got to keep the bike. And I was like, that's fair. So the Schwinn was also another bike that was sent to me. Both of these bikes are getting donated. And that's what I'm doing whenever a company sends me a bike and they say that I can keep it. I'm just going to donate it because I already have more than enough stuff. And, especially nowadays, there's a lot of people that mountain biking is turning into a real luxury. And so being able to make it more obtainable, the GT is probably going to go to a mountain bike coach that I know. And then the Schwinn is getting donated to a local co-op.
Sweet.
So
I would sell them.
Like,
hey man,
not going to make any money off of it. What's that?
I said I would sell them. I think your time is worth money, but that's a righteous thing that you're doing there, man. Right on.
I mean, I already got. So
back to why your screws are loose and you got drop bars on that thing. Tell me about that.
All right. So I'm actually going to make a whole video on this because it turned into a crazy adventure. But basically, I was stuck in quarantine, and in Colorado, I wanted to be a good citizen and follow the rules, which was, stay within, I think it was like a 15-mile radius of your home. And this was early in the quarantine. So that doesn't apply currently.
I was like, I'm sure they said 50. I'm out.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem, right? Is that, the hospitals were overflowing.
Yeah.
15-mile radius limit. No mountain biking was happening because all the trails that I wanted to go to were at least 30 miles away.
Okay.
So like, what's the point? And I had a bunch of spare parts and I wanted to make it challenging. So I took the GT and I'm like, well, I can ride this around as is, but I really like gravel bikes. I have a bunch of spare parts kicking around. I'm going to turn this bike into like the ultimate gravel bike, which there's apparently a term for that. It's called monster cross.
Monster cross. All right. I'm in.
Yeah.
If so like, to buy a new bike, I'm in.
Yeah. So for the people that don't know the terminology, cycle cross is one of the original categories of a road bike that was adapted to go off-road. So it has more rugged frame builds, but it's still very lightweight. And then it uses wider tires, but still relatively narrow compared to mountain bike tires. We're talking like 1.25 inch wide tires at most.
Right.
And so cyclocross, that's that. And then gravel is kind of like the plush bikes, more of the adventure bikes. Monster cross was the term that people came up with to kind of describe basically a mountain bike with drop bars.
Why would you want to do that?
So like with your road bike, one of the big reasons why it's so nice to have drop bars is because you have all these positions that you can move your hand into I keep banging my mic. You can move your hand around so you don't get stiff, and also you can drop into more aerodynamic position, which I want people to try this on your mountain bike next time. When you're going down a hill with your friends, drop your saddle so that way your center of gravity is lower, and then tuck yourself as close as you can to your bars without pedaling, and then just watch how fast you start passing your friends. That's how much of a difference air drag can make. So that's why those aero bars are so critical, especially on downhill segments. You work so hard to earn that speed. You want to keep it going as long as you can. And then the other thing was, I just wanted to make my local greenbelt trail way more interesting.
Right. Make it more difficult.
I mean, that's the term that you're going to hear a lot of people use to talk about like why they got a gravel bike when they had a mountain bike. It's because it will make green trails challenging, which, a lot of people think that's silly, and I can appreciate why. But for me, it's still fun. And that's the whole purpose of riding bikes, is to have fun, not who has the most correct bike.
Yeah, totally. I think
that's a concept that people forget about. Rocco, do you need something? The dog is like panting and looking at me anxiously.
Yeah, he's like, "What's up, dude? It's time for dinner, man. Stop talking about bikes. I'm over it."
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, so that's kind of the idea why I was bored, and I had a bunch of spare parts, and I wanted to make the local trails interesting. And then from there, suddenly I realized, wow, this is actually really fun.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to turn this into a whole project. Like, instead of just using spare parts, I was like, all right, I'm going to build this out right. So like, I ordered an ultra wide drop bar from P&W Components. I put better brakes on there. I put better, I got a really nice.
So they sell wider drop bars then. Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, they're like
instead of like just what you have on your road bike.
Yeah, 52 centimeters, which is basically like 520 millimeters.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I got.
Braking is so different. That's the only thing that I'm like, man, on the like chunky stuff, it's like really weird when you're on like when I'm on my cross bike, or so I can imagine on that too. It's just like, it's like my mind's not like wrapped up for that like braking hand position yet. I definitely would have to do it more to be able to like get make it feel normal.
So it's very interesting because there's riding up on the horns, which is on the top of the handlebar, and then riding in the drops is when you're in like those loops. Yeah, that's where you actually kind of want to be for those more technical things, because that way you're not worried about your hands sliding up off of the horns, which is usually where I get into the most problems. Being down in the drops gives you a more aggressive position because you're kind of in that attack position, like we talk about mountain biking.
But then you can't brake.
But then if you hit something, your palms are gonna, dig into the grips, and you're gonna be able to hold on, and that's that's why it's a little bit weird. Hang on, let me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm really like kind of considering giving the gravel thing more of a try than I have. Like when I first bought my gravel bike, honestly, the only reason I bought it was so that I would have gears to be able to climb, because otherwise my road bike was a single speed. So Sacramento's pretty flat for the most part. So I did rides that were like 70 miles long on my single speed, you know, but it's flat. Like where I did need to climb would be like going over bridges and shit like that, you know? So it would be like, get out of the saddle, chug it out a little bit, you'd be all right. And then I did, but like when my lady started getting into road riding more, then she would want to go and climb more. So I bought the gravel bike because it was like a compromise where it was like, I'm not a roadie. I can buy this. And if I want to put slick tires on it, I can put slick tires on it. If not, I can ride it with the knobbies and I can justify it that I'm not a roadie. And, I've been thinking about it more and more, and like, because the hardtail, I think the hardtail kind of got me into this position too, whereas the same idea is like make things harder, right? So it's like I've ridden the hard trail on a bunch of trails around like Auburn where I ride a lot, and I see these guys up there on the cross bikes, and I'm like, man, that's just crazy. And then I start thinking to myself, man, I wonder how, I mean, climbing up Clem wouldn't be so bad if I was on a road bike, because it's like, you know, so it's getting it in my head. It's starting to work in there.
Sorry, I had myself muted for a second.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
Yeah, you know, I definitely don't try to force it on people, but you know what's really interesting I've noticed, because during quarantine and COVID, when, you know, it started getting lifted, suddenly you saw this massive explosion of people wanting to get back into or just into biking, and mountain biking was really popular. And one of the most interesting things I saw was when I started going out on my local trails again, I saw so many garage queens, you know, the bikes that got ridden for maybe like a few months and then just hung up on racks and just left in the garage. And a lot of them were like great bikes, or bikes that you could tell were an older model but looked brand new. And so people were like, yeah, you know, I enjoy riding, but I don't want a mountain bike, but I want to go on my local trails. And someone that I knew, actually, they had this really, really, really nice mountain bike from like 20 years ago. Like back in the day, that was like a top end Yeti type bike.
Right.
And they're like, hey, should I fix this up or should I get a new bike? And I was like, well, it depends. What are you doing? Like, well, I just mostly ride around the green belt around my neighborhood. I'm like, I mean, the bike that you have is still perfectly good, but you know, it was starting to fall into disrepair because it was so old. And it was hard to source parts. Guess what they got? They got gravel bikes.
Yeah.
Because that was a perfect compromise. It's more aggressive than what they had even from 20 years ago, but it's not so aggressive as like a high tower, because that was one of the bikes we were looking at. And yeah, I mean, like that's one of the benefits of it. It just, I really wish people would stop obsessing over like why a bike is wrong and just appreciate why certain people would buy that bike.
I saw a gravel bike the other day. I can't remember what brand it is. Somebody in comics probably know. It was a full suspension gravel bike. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen that. And you know what? If that's the perfect bike for you, then more power to you.
There's a bike for everyone, right?
Yeah, there's a bike for everyone. Personally, I think that, you know, that's kind of that because we could.
Yeah.
And you got the money and that solves a problem for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. But I do think at that point you are better off just getting a really
like an XC bike.
Yeah, getting a full suspension XC bike and just putting some smaller diameter tires, or not diameter, but
width. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, less width tires. Words are hard, kids.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, just customizing it. That's basically what I did with the GT. Was one of my favorite places to bargain hunt is the Pros Closet. A lot of people complain, when I made a video on that, they're like, stop giving away the good stuff, because if you actually sit and watch their channel, or their website, go in there every couple days and just check and see what they've updated, or especially their eBay store, you find massively good deals. For like $190, I got these Stan Arch wheels. brand
nice.
new. The only problem with them is that they had a blemish. Like,
so you're just talking about the hoops, or they were built like hubs and everything?
yeah, like
Oh, wow.
everything.
Right on.
Yeah, they were what Arch S1s.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So like
Archer good deals.
ultralight, yeah, ultralight, and like with the money that I saved, I was able to get an upgraded hub on it, so it even has finer engagement on it.
Yeah, you know what I'm
And
doing
like so
right
for
now.
like $220, I had this really lightweight, high engagement wheel set.
Yeah.
And it's only like a 25, 22, 25, I think it's like 25, 24 millimeter width rim. So not really meant for aggressive stuff, but perfect for like lightweight trail riding.
I want to buy another set of 29er wheels for my Chameleon. Even though I like the 27.5 a lot, there's some places where I'm like, I wonder how I would like, because I did ride it as a 29er for a while. So I'm like, I think I want to put some on there. So I don't want to fully commit into buying a like really nice wheel set, but I was actually looking at some hoops the other day, and now that you said that, I think that's the website I'm heading to this evening.
Like I said, you're going to go on there and you're going to be like, oh, there's nothing good on here. The way that they get their inventory is it's either used, which they fully inspect everything, or it is like warehouse clearouts where like a bike shop just want to get rid of something, or like a bike brand had way too many Maxis minions that they had bought for a production run and ended up not needing it. And for cleaning up the books, you know, the finance books that month or that quarter, they want to sell it. So they buy, I was able to buy high roller 2.3 29er tires with Max Terra compound, like $15 a pop.
Nice. There you go.
Just insane. Like I bought like 5 sets because why not? They're so cheap.
Right. Yeah. No, that's definitely. I mean, tires aren't cheap either, man. I tell you, I pinched one the other day, and in a way that it like ripped like right by the bead, and you know, I was telling my buddy about it, and he's like, "There goes $100," and I was like, "Damn, he's right." You know, I was like, "Holy shit."
Yeah, I mean, it is insane because they're consumables, but of course, you know, they're literally the only thing contacting the ground between you know, you and the bike. So you don't want to cheap out on that. I'm actually looking to see what they have right now for wheels. So let's see.
Before you get off on that tangent, I want to ask you one more thing about the drop bar bike. Do you have a dropper seat on that bike?
Yes, I have the P&W Coast, I think it's called. Yeah, the P&W Coast suspension dropper post.
Oh, what's that mean? Tell me about that.
So this is a really clutch thing. It's an air cartridge dropper post, so you pump it up, but they made it easy to get at the valve, so it comes off the back of the stanchion.
Okay.
And what you do is you dial in the pressure like you would your shock. But what you want to do is you want to find the pressure where when you're pedaling, it stays planted. But then when you hit a bump, it actually compresses. So it actually kind of acts like a broken dropper post.
Yeah.
And for a hardtail, when you're like seated and you're like, especially on gravel bikes, but even just mountain bike hardtails, because they make it in mountain bike sizes. The benefit of that is your tires absorb all the chatter, but then like when you hit that big rock or, you know, root, the saddle bloop, bounces down and then pops back up. And it takes the edge off. Like you still definitely feel that you hit something. It doesn't mute the trail. No replacement for a full suspension bike because it's all it is disconnecting you from a big hit. Yeah. But I love it. I think it's like one of the coolest things. And,
I was going to ask you if you had your dropper lever like set up to the derailleur on the drop bar, but
yeah, I'm going to go over that in the video. I have all that stuff filmed. I just need to sit down and edit it.
That's really cool. So I was thinking about even on my current gravel bike, it has a 2x up front, and I'm thinking about dropping the 2x and just putting a dropper in through the same routing.
Yeah, just get like a good one by setup and you're good. And then you can have the lever be converted over. Most levers, depending if it's Shimano, it's a little harder. SRAM is really easy. You just take a little clip out and it's done.
Uh-huh.
Or, P&W sells the lever for drop bars because they're a different diameter.
Uh-huh. Where does
But
that
yeah, wherever you
go?
want it. You can put
Uh,
it like towards the top. So like when you're riding up on the top of the bar, you can hit it.
uh-huh.
Some people like they put it towards the drop. So like you can operate it like this. Wolf Tooth actually makes a dropper specific lever arm where it goes into the end and then the lever kind of sits over the bar itself, like it's parallel with it. So that
Oh,
way
okay.
you can just go down to the end of the bar. It's really hard
Yeah,
to
yeah.
pick.
I see what
You
I
just lay it
understand
on
what
the
you're trying to say. Yeah.
bar and you squeeze the bar end and you actuate that lever.
Right on.
Tons of ways to solve the problem. But
I
yeah,
think the way
drop
I'm going to solve the problem, I'm just buy another bike now. What the hell?
or just buy one that comes with it. I'm sure that
Yeah.
full suspension gravel bike comes with it. But yeah, dude, you can get like some for wheels. You can get like $1,500 NV carbons. You can get some um, stands for like
Definitely not spending.
520 Santa
Yeah.
Cruz Reserve 25 carbon for $1,600.
Yeah. I'm looking for like $500 or less. So yeah, I'll definitely have to check it out tonight. That definitely sounds like a good waste of my time. You find yourself like going down these like rabbit holes. The other day, I through a conversation with the lady, we talked about, man, that would be nice if we had like an ice machine, like you would get at like a restaurant, because one of our friends has one. They ride a lot, so it's like you go out in the garage, it's like big freaking thing of ice and just scoop it in the Camelback, and we're like, dude, we should get one of those. So I spent at least like probably 2 hours like on the internet looking at this one, reading this review, doing this, and like basically about 2.5 hours in, I'm like, I'm not spending $500 for ice.
Yep.
Like, but it was, I had to do it though. I had to go down that rabbit hole. Yeah. So good times there. That's for sure. Are you, what kind of gear are you stoked about lately?
Oh, that's a good question. So, what am I stoked on? I,
I'll
I
tell
have
you,
a
go ahead.
I have a drivetrain that I'm supposed to review, but I still haven't taken it out of the box. Is that bad?
Uh, is that one of the big names or?
It's the Advent 9.
Oh, okay. Who's admin?
Yeah, not the Advent X that just came out, but the Advent 9. They reached out to me. They want me to put it on the Schwinn, and the project got put on ice because I was waiting for some parts for the current video that I'm working on with the Schwinn.
Uh-huh.
And then I got distracted with the 3D printer. They emailed me. They're like, "Hey, you gonna do that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, totally." I
Yeah.
did injure my wrist though, so that sent back a lot of things. But what am I like? What am I using that I'm actually really stoked on? So I'm loving that Troy Lee design stage helmet.
Yeah. While you go get that, I can tell you right now what I've been like most happy about in my life is whether it's hand up or it's Tasco is like their summer gloves right now. They're super light
Oh yeah,
gloves. Oh my God, I'm in love. I love them.
yeah. I actually just got Tasco's new, more aggressive gloves. The one that has a little bit more padding and it
Yeah.
velcros on.
Yeah.
Because it was funny. I first started talking with Nate because I really didn't want to get minimalist gloves because in Austin you have a lot of speed gates, and if you're not familiar with that term, it's basically like trees that are purposefully left on either side of the trail to slow you down.
Uh-huh.
Uh, enduro racers hate those, so they try to chop them down, and then the cross country guys, oh, no, it's a big thing. Anyways, I would bash my knuckles on my,
On these.
700, 800 millimeter bars.
Yeah.
So I would actually wear motocross gloves.
Uh-huh.
And I kept seeing all these ads for Tasco and Hand Up, and I was like, I can't use those because they, I'll bash my knuckles in. And Nate actually reached out to me. He's like, well, have you actually tried our gloves yet? And I was like, oh, no. He's like, oh, I'll send you some. Like, okay, cool. So that's how I met Nate.
Yeah.
But yeah, this helmet, this is like my new favorite thing. I honestly think that anyone who does any aggressive trail riding should seriously consider getting a lightweight full face. It is amazing how much tech and protection they can fit into a lightweight package. I mean, this is honestly, if I took off the GoPro mount, which I'm hoping to 3D print something besides this, because this thing is kind of a safety hazard. It's a big metal quick release plate. Without that, this helmet, it's maybe only like a couple 100 grams heavier than my half lid.
Yeah.
A regular Cali trail helmet. And it just offers a little bit more protection. It is a little hotter, but I mean, on the climbs, most people take off their helmets for full face anyways. And it's so lightweight, you could clip it onto your backpack or just hang it on your handlebars, but it's not that hot. And I used to ride in Austin, so I was obsessed with making sure that I was using lightweight, breathable gear. In Colorado, obviously, I'm allowed to get away with a little bit less because it's not as humid, but that sun can bake you. I mean, you know how it is when you get at high altitudes and you're just exposed.
Yeah, no, I get you.
So yeah, this I think was like one of the best purchases I've made. I still really like Cali, but they just didn't have a full face trail helmet that fit me right.
Yeah. I'm waiting for that new. I had Brad, the owner of Cali, on a few weeks back, and he was saying that they made some updates to their new full face that they have, and that should be coming out later this year. So I'm kind of waiting for those updates to come out, and then I think I'm going to grab one. I have a Bell, like a detachable full face, super comfortable, breathes very well, but I just don't wear it very often. But I've definitely been thinking a lot lately with some of the trails that I've been doing, like, why am I not like protecting my face? You know, like I guess I'm just getting old enough to that where I'm like more worried about getting injured than I am about looking cool, you know?
I mean, it is funny. When I first got this, it was to wear out in Sedona. One of the personal reasons I got it was with full faces, it's really convenient to mount your GoPro there because your head is the perfect gimbal. And then you get that real great POV shot, and it's just click, click, done. So I wanted to wear it in Sedona, and of course Sedona is really hot. So I needed something lightweight, breathable. And I actually really abused the Amazon return policy because I bought the Fox Pro frame. I bought, well, not through Amazon, but I did buy that Cali Interceptor, I think is their new lightweight full face.
The Invader, I think.
Yeah, Invader.
Like
I was stuck in between sizes, and I think that was the feedback they got from a lot of people was you need more than 2 shell sizes. Like, you can't use pads to try to make up for that. So that didn't fit. The Fox was pretty comfortable, but still pretty not breathable.
Yeah.
The worst.
That's interesting because that Pro frame looks like it breathes very well.
This thing has a lot of vents on it. And I mean, it's super minimalist. Like anything that didn't need to be there, they took off, which that's probably one of the best ways to approach engineering is instead of figuring out what you can add to it, remove everything that's not required.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, this was actually lighter than the equivalent size Pro frame.
Yeah.
Which, depending on how you look at it, could be a good or a bad thing, because with helmets, you would like to think that bigger is better. But just like we found with cars, more steel doesn't equal safer. It's how those materials are designed and what materials put into what position. Like a lot of people really like the Bell removable one that you have.
Yeah.
But there were first off, you have to put in all that. And I think that Callie talked about this on your podcast. You have to put in all that hardware. That is extra engineering. It makes it heavier. It makes it more complex. It has to go through more testing.
Right.
Whereas when it's one piece, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. This is no replacement for a downhill helmet. I still have my carbon fiber Cali Shiva.
Yeah.
That is what I wear when I go to the park because I don't mess around when I'm at the park.
Yeah. The bell I have is the DH version. So I think that's why I don't wear it very often, because it's definitely bigger. It breathes amazing, like no overheating issues. And even when I've worn it as a half shell, it doesn't feel like heavy or anything. Like it's a great helmet. Like really no problem telling people to do it. But I think if I had something like what you're holding, or like the Cali, like that's super, super minimalistic, super light, super breathable, then I might actually start wearing it more than the half lid.
Honestly, this is my go-to helmet now. The only time I grab my half lid Cali is when I'm just pedaling around the neighborhood and I know I don't need anything else. Any other time, going to the jump park, going to Floyd Hill to test a bike or just get a good ride in, this is what I grab. Like,
well, you're filming with the new Hero 8 though now too, aren't you?
You know what's funny? I still use the 7. I have the 8, but I still use the 7. I when it's mounted like this, it's hard to tell them apart.
Yeah, I was wondering if that's the reason that's your helmet then, because like for me, it's like I'm still using the 4 and the gimbal, so it's not as easily justified to wear the full face to be able to get the footage.
Honestly, grab if you're still on a 4, it's worth jumping to the 8.
Yeah.
If you have a 7, it's not worth going to the 8.
Yeah. I'm kind of at that spot where I'm just waiting for my stuff to die. I mean, I'm hoping that like the 9 comes out before my stuff dies, because at this point I still have 2 GoPros and 2 gimbals, until they stop working. And I'm just not doing as much, I guess, because I kind of like, I after I went through the same kind of burnout or whatever you want to call it that you were talking about earlier. Like once I went through that, I'm not trying to push for a video every week. My personal goal is like 1 a month, and if something else comes up, but for the most part, that's what I'm shooting for, 1 a month. And then I'm doing this every weekend. And, so I'm not riding as much with all that stuff on. So it's definitely it's not getting the abuse that it was before when I was doing, at least a video a week, maybe sometimes 2,
Yeah. Funny thing is that GoPro definitely caused a weird problem for themselves, that the 4 was such a good camera.
Right.
It wasn't until like the 6, actually really the 7.
I think the 7 was the one. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the Hero 5 was a whole new departure, which I get why they did it, but it was so poorly executed. And then the 6 was what the 5 should have been.
Yeah.
And then we got
like Vista and 7. Like the 5 was Vista, and the 6 was Windows 7. Man, I'm just like taking that up. If you guys are not in the IT industry and you don't understand what I said, don't worry, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. But yeah, like then when the Hero 7 came out, that was finally the camera that was like, okay, yeah, I'll use this instead of my Hero 4. But the Hero 4s, they're really strong for how basic they're built, because they're mostly built out of plastic, but because they're so lightweight, it takes a major hit to just demolish them. And then when you could source all the parts to rebuild it yourself, or just buy them cheap on eBay, because there was always at least 50 on eBay. But yeah, so now GoPro has been trying to convince everyone to buy their newest stuff, and the 7 was that camera that made me switch. And then I got the 8 because I was obsessed with like being one of the first people to review it, and then I got it. I was like, yeah, it's basically the same. And then I lost all interest in making a video. Everyone else made a video by the time I got it, because I was on vacation, and I get back, everyone put out their first look videos, and I was like, maybe I could do a deep dive. Then I start looking like, well, I can look at the color science, look at the bit rate. Oh my God, I'm boring myself. Never mind.
Boring yourself. That's awesome. You know it's bad when you're boring yourself, right?
Yeah, it's like no one cares. They're just watching our videos while they sit on the toilet in between lunch breaks at work.
Right? Yeah. Tell me about it. I wonder. Yeah, that's too funny, man. There's like the the writing now is a little interesting with a lot of. Do you guys have like gobs and gobs of hikers on all the trails, or is it pretty like?
Oh god, it was so bad for the longest time. And like, don't get me wrong, I think that this is great that the outdoor community suddenly got a few more people. I'm just
Yeah.
hoping that we get a lot of people sticking around and doing trail builds and doing more advocacy for trail access, because now they understand, these trails just don't appear. But unfortunately, we still have problems just like everywhere else. Colorado is having trail access problems like California is and other states. But yeah,
Yeah.
when everything started opening back up and you were allowed to get out more, oh my gosh, the trails were just exploding.
Yeah. I just would
And
hope that people would actually start picking their trash up. That would be the first step.
no, it got worse, man.
Oh,
Just
man,
all of a
so
sudden, all these weekend warriors went out there and people are finding all sorts of garbage. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the stuff posted on Instagram where like local park trailheads, the trash bins are overflowing with crap. The trails are littered. People are just leaving stuff up there. Like they'll grab McDonald's and hike up to the top of a, like
thing.
5 mile climb, eat it and done, and just toss it over the side. And it was like each one of those people made a small but like noticeable impact. Multiply that by 100 people a day, it got insane.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy around here. And like there's a trail that we climb in Auburn called Clementine, and it's about for the riders, I think it's around 3 miles. But it also it's following the river, and halfway up the trail is there's a dam, which is like, got essentially a waterfall coming off of it, right? A man-made waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of people hike up to that to see the dam, and it's like a good mile and a half or whatever up, and then mile and a half back, and it's like people are doing it with their kids and everything. And then so that trail normally on the weekends is usually pretty busy anyway, but it went from busy to like Disneyland whenever everything first happened.
Oh yeah.
And then after that, they closed the parking lots, so then people had to park up top of the hill and then hike down. And I think that's when it even got worse, because then instead of them, having to walk downhill to get back to their car, they had to walk up. So then they would just start, shedding stuff, and you're just, as you're climbing, you just see this like just trash like everywhere. And it was really like a bummer that, I was having a hard time like wrapping my head around it. Like, hey, you came out here to like be in nature and have a good time with it, and then you're just gonna throw your trash all over the place. Like, I'm not like an environmentalist by any means, but I'm like, seriously, dude, like,
Yeah. Like, it's insane. There was a spot in Austin that always broke my heart because it was one of my favorite places to ride. Austin locals will know what I'm talking about. It's Sculpture Falls, and it is off of the Hill of Life Greenbelt, and it is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, amazing place to go and hang out. But because it was so amazing and because it was so easy to get to, you had a lot of college kids going there. And
Yeah,
I
the
watched,
party place.
I watched these two frat boys carry this giant cooler full of beer.
Yeah,
And they crack a beer, drink the beer, toss the can.
right.
Like they went through all that effort to bring it in. But when it was like 1/8 of the weight, not
Right.
even 1/10 of the weight, they
Right.
wouldn't bother to bring it back. So like you'd get in the water and there would be beer cans that you would step on and cut your feet. You would see styrofoam Whataburger trash all over the place. it was just like, what, you went through all the effort to bring it in.
Right.
It's now lighter and easier to pack away, but you won't bring it out.
Yeah.
That does not compute with me. And it's like, this is why we can't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things. What the hell are you thinking?
Yeah. So like at the same time, I'm not what many would consider like an environmentalist.
Yeah.
But at the same time, pick up your shit.
Right.
Like it's not that hard. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't go over to someone's house and feel comfortable just tossing litter onto their carpet. Why would you do that outside?
You would think, right? I will say though, you know, to bring it back to a positive note, dude, I'm stoked that people are getting out there, and hopefully that whenever this stuff wraps up, that they continue to do so. You know what I mean? So, it would be nice, but for some of you, this could be a good thing if they don't, because somebody said this to me the other day, and I was like, you know what? You got a good point. They're like, watch. When all the like restrictions are lifted and people are allowed to do whatever they want to do, and it gets closer to Christmas time and they want to have some money, all of a sudden all these nice bikes that people went out and bought that stopped getting used as soon as the quarantine was lifted, those things are going to be for sale. And hey, it could be a screaming deal like 2021 for all these. It's going to be winter. They're going to be like, screw that bike. I don't want to ride that bike anyway. You know?
Oh yeah, it like as soon as life goes back to quote normal, it is going to be just a treasure trove. Like Josh, daily MTB rider, he is such a bargain hunter like I am. We're both just like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. We're gonna be able to like make all these videos. We're gonna be able to buy upgrades for our bikes, and you know, not just us, for everyone. For the people that actually decide to stay in mountain biking, you know, they bought that entry level bike. They discovered that they loved mountain biking. Now they can get that $5,000 mountain bike for like $2,500.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see what happens. I've been really eyeing up, like I told you, I've been thinking about a new bike, and obviously I'm freaking Santa Cruz fanboy, so I've been really looking at that 2019 Bronson, and it's like their new frame design, and the 2019 specifically because I really like the gray. So like I'm like, man, I'm just waiting for those things to start popping up, because now that there's a new color design out, like people are gonna like, oh, I want the new one, and hopefully that gray one starts coming out used soon. I'll be there to swoop it up.
So I mean, like Steve Y just made a comment about e-bikes. I'm curious what the used market's going to be like for e-bikes, because there's probably going to be some people that bought some, and then you know it's like the novelty's worn off, because they are expensive. I'm not going to pretend that they're not expensive, and that's why you have dentists that buy those expensive things.
Very specific about the November 5th to 6th. I wonder if he knows about some kind of a super deal that's going on somewhere, or that's exactly when he's expecting them to unload, like right before Thanksgiving.
Yep, all those people that need to clear house to make room for like paying off Christmas bills or holiday stuff.
Now that Steve said the E word, we might as well talk about it. Do you want one?
E-bikes, yeah.
Do you think
they're great?
Which one do you think you would ride more? Do you think you would still ride the analog more? Or do you think you would like once you get a taste of it, it'd be like it's on, be in the E all the time?
I think I would stick with analog, because I mean, you're still getting added complexity and maintenance on top of that. Then you got to charge it. And the thing about e-bikes is like, I totally understand why some trails limit them. But at the same time, I think that the stereotype of like, oh, they cause more damage to the trail, I think that's just people kind of overreacting.
Yeah, I'm not buying it either. Yeah, I feel like it's just like, just people. Nobody wants to change. Everybody wants to bitch about stuff. I don't see it either. Because I can tell you, dude, I would imagine Yeah, I think that'll just be like a rant if I start going on about it. I don't see it either. Like, honestly, I think that it's a good thing, and I would be stoked. I didn't even think about the e-bikes being up there for sale, like Steve said, so, or whoever mentioned that. Like that, I'd love to get an e-bike. I know it'll happen too. It'll be like I'll see some sweet deal like right after I buy that Bronson, right? So I'll be like just dumped, a couple grand into a new bike build, and then it'll be like, oh,
yeah.
Taxes will be coming
in. I'll tell you this. The first e-bike that I'll buy is the one that Alex Chamberlain cannot destroy.
Oh yeah.
Because that guy, like, give him, I've always, like, every time Alex Chamberlain posts on Instagram, he's broken another thing, I always be like, this is why I will never let you borrow my bike. Because, like, the reason why he breaks is because Alex Chamberlain is an absolute beast on a bike.
Yeah.
He
rides a lot of moto too, so I could see him like with an e-bike just trying to treat that thing like a motorcycle,
Oh yeah. Going full send all the time. So that's why for me, like, also another person, Dakota Tagalong, you got to meet him out in Sedona, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. The Gorilla Gravity guys. You know why I wouldn't hesitate recommending Gorilla Gravity to people?
Why is that?
Because Dakota has not been able to break his frame.
Yeah, I've seen that dude ride on his videos. He's a shredder, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. He's an absolute legend. And like, he has broken lyrics, just completely demolished them.
Wow.
And that's just the cost of entry for him riding the way he does. And it's not that he doesn't take care of stuff. It's just that he finds the limitations of it.
Yeah.
Because, pro riders have the benefit of having, that stuff serviced and being able to send it to the company to get it serviced. So there's a reason why between every lap, the team tears down and rebuilds the bike basically.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, if Dakota or Alex Chamberlain cannot break the bike, guaranteed to last a lifetime.
Right on, dude. We're coming up on 2 hours here, man. I want to ask you what else you like watching on YouTube.
Besides videos on 3D printers, because that seems to be all I watch now.
That's the thing lately, huh?
Yeah. Let's see. So, obviously there's the camera gear stuff. I really like watching DP reviews. Who's another good one that I really like? Oh, there's this really cool local artist, Detour. He does urban art. Cool. And he does a lot of cool like murals and stuff like that. Really cool person. Check him out. Pathless Pedaled. If you want to know everything about gravel bikes, this dude is the guy to watch. Russ really focuses on like the everyday, just want to ride to have fun and be comfortable. Yeah. So no elitist attitude there. He just wants to enjoy life on a bike. So that's
I find myself watching all these damn van build videos. I have this like van fantasy that's like really far-fetched because I don't think I'll ever actually get one, because every time I go through the whole process in my head, I get back around to like, why am I spending $50,000 for something I don't think I'm going to end up using that much? Like not $50,000 worth of use. You know what I mean? Like how many times could I rent a van that has everything in it for as many weekends as I want for 50 grand like that? So like, but I keep watching all these videos and these builds and how they did the build and how they hid it. I'm like, I don't know. It's just like the rabbit hole that I like keep falling into.
Yeah, I thought about one too, but same thing. It's like, how can I justify it? Because, I totally get why Alex did it. I totally get why Brian did it. Yeah. Me, like, maybe like I'm trying to justify like, buying a nice new tent or even maybe getting one of those pop-up tents that go on the top of your car that you see like
totally. I know what you're talking about.
Adventure drivers go. That I might think about when we get a house, then I'll have a place to store it. But right now with an apartment, even if we had a house, I don't think I could justify buying a whole nother vehicle. That's basically, just another thing that needs to be maintained.
Yeah, even like there's a guy that works at my work, and he has one, but it's like his daily driver as well. I'm like kind of like, okay, I can kind of see like you can make a little justify it that way, but I'm like, I don't want that to be my regular vehicle though either. So I think,
Yeah.
well, all I'm going to do is fantasize about it all the time and actually never do it. But it'll give me plenty. There's plenty of content to watch about it. Let me tell you that.
Yeah. No, my brother-in-law, funny enough, he's thinking about doing a van conversion. He's the guy that does the DP stuff, and he's already done a conversion for like videography, but now he wants to do one for like road tripping around. And he found Paul the Punter's videos and recognized my logo on the fridge because I gave Paul one of my magnets in Sedona. But real quick, if you enjoy any type of like machine shop engineering stuff and love someone with a really sassy sense of humor, this old Tony is a must watch. His like I don't know how this guy is good at so many different things.
Like video a while back.
He is a trials rider. So like he does motorcycle trials, and sometimes he'll bring his trial bike in and he'll like machine replacement parts.
Yeah.
But his storytelling, his sense of humor, the way he edits his videos, I'm like, this guy is so freaking good at so many things. I'm a failure in life. I have no idea how this guy's so good.
Where he was like doing a thing about. Yeah, I'm almost positive I've watched one of his videos before. I know who you're talking about. Really entertaining. Definitely really entertaining.
Yeah, I love him and Seth are like some of the channels that like when they make a video, I stop what I'm doing and watch it because I know it's going to be a banger.
Yeah, no, definitely. I hear you there. Right on, dude. Hey, man. It's always easy burning 2 hours of conversation with you, man. Like I always have a great time chatting. For whatever reason, we don't end up chatting much when we're in person, though. It's funny. It's like when we were in Sedona, it was like, hey, how's it going, dude? Hey, blah, 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 blah. And then we're on, it's like,
yeah,
we'll have to make a point of it this next year. Hopefully there is actually a Sedona. I'm predicting the election's over and somehow COVID is miraculously not a problem anymore. And then we can go on to Sedona Mountain Bike Festival in March.
Well, if the vaccine comes out around that time, maybe you might be right.
Yeah, the lady was saying there was like, oh yeah, they got these trials. They said it should be released in December. I said, see, I told you. So anyways, yeah, dude, great hanging out. If you guys don't watch Trail Features channel, you should definitely check it out. Always good content out there. Awesome cinematography, great storyteller, and good all around, dude. I had a great time chatting with you. Those of you guys that if you enjoyed this, hit the like button. I don't know. I'm not looking at the right page right now, so I don't know how many of you did it, but I'm sure there's not everyone. So out of the 47 of you left, or the, a couple hundred of you guys that are going to watch this in the next few weeks, hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe. Like I said before, I've been saying this for the last few weeks. I went on to Social Blade and they think I'm only going to be at like 6,000 in 1 year. So I don't want to be at 6,000 in 1 year. I want to be at 10,000 in 1 year. So if it's not for you guys hitting the subscribe button, I'm definitely never going to hit that goal. So let's see if we can do that. I think you guys can help me out. So, man, what a great conversation, dude. Really, really, truly had a good time talking with you. Anything you want to say on your way out?
Whatever bike you got, wherever you live, grab it, go outside and find your next adventure.
Right on, man. Thanks again for being on the show. And for all you guys out there, you guys know the deal. It only takes a bike to be a biker. So get out and be one. See ya.